The Super NES Classic Edition collects 21 mostly amazing games from the 90s in an adorable, nostalgic console. While there are cheaper and easier ways to play some of the greatest games of the 16-bit era, none of them feel this right. The SNES Classic's cute little box contains 21 games, which is fewer than last year's NES Classic's 30. But Nintendo's opted for quality over quantity, with over a dozen genre or franchise-defining headliners, like The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, Super Mario World, and Super Metroid. Just like the NES Classic, these games are gorgeously emulated for HD screens in both 4x3 and pixel-perfect modes, with the optional fuzzy CRT filter. Of course, not everything has stood the test of time. The original Super Mario Kart's flat courses can be headache-inducing, while Kirby's Dream Course's physics are frustrating to learn. And even as a platformer completionist, I don't know if I'll ever care enough to take on the brutal challenge of Super Ghouls and Ghosts. As for Star Fox 2, it's a marvel of video game history to be able to play a previously unreleased game. Problem is, it's not all that fun to play. Aiming, which is something you do quite a bit, is a chore thanks to a horrifically choppy frame rate. But more than half of the SNES Classic's catalog is fantastic and still a blast to play. While this is an excellent collection, it's by no means definitive. It's disappointing that there's no Chrono Trigger, and a solid sports entry like NBA Jam would have been appreciated. Considering there's no official way to load more games onto the SNES Classic, just like with its predecessor, those holes in the library will remain forever. The SNES Classic includes the same modern conveniences as the NES Classic, including suspend points that allow you to save at any time in any game. That's a huge help when real life intrudes on gaming time, like in long RPGs like EarthBound. Likewise, the rewind feature allows you to skip back a minute or so to replay particularly difficult sections in platformers like Mega Man X and Super Ghouls and Ghosts, without having to play through an entire level like you did back in the day. But this new feature comes with an annoying limitation. Like the NES Classic, Nintendo has faithfully recreated the SNES system in miniature to a fault. Because there are no new buttons on the controller, you have to push the console's physical reset button to back out to the main menu and use those features. That's a ridiculous nuisance, even for a retro device aiming for authenticity. Yes, SNES controllers didn't have extra buttons, but the SNES also wasn't as small as the Classic. Of course, you'll have to be fairly close to the system anyway, as the SNES Classic's controllers are still wide. You may have to adjust your gaming setup to sit within reach with the controller's 4-foot, 7-inch cords. On the bright side, that means there's no input lag on these tough old platformers, and the cords are mercifully longer than the NES Classic's egregiously short ones. Plus, Nintendo smartly bundles two controllers to make multiplayer an option right out of the box, though Secret of Mana's 3-player multiplayer option is sadly unavailable with only 2 controller ports on each system. The controllers themselves are virtually indistinguishable from the original SNES's, and though I'm used to more modern options, the flat, rounded SNES controllers are still surprisingly comfortable to use. It remains an absolute joy to play the majority of this selection of the SNES Classic's excellent library, whether for the first or the 50th time. While I wish Nintendo had taken more lessons from the faults of last year's NES Classic and added more modern conveniences to the hardware, this tiny but delightfully detailed console makes it quick and easy to have an authentic 90s Nintendo experience. For more, check out our review of the NES Classic and our SNES Classic Edition unboxing. And for all things Nintendo, keep it right here on IGN.